Isn't it remarkable the influence that our parents have on our lives? That's what we explore today here with Oliver Fernandez. He is a construction company business owner and real estate investor out of Washington, D.C. And today's episode is a very interesting one because basically what I do is I hit record and I let Oliver tell his story, how he got into the construction world through the influence of his parents, the ups and downs of starting a construction company, how he learned to cold call when he started his business, what he's learned about growing his organization as he's on the journey from 20 million to 40 million and onward to $100 million in revenue, how he shifted from being a sub to a general contractor, and many, many other topics. The thing you like about Oliver is that he's very honest and open about his successes, but also his failures. And I think through this conversation, you're going to get some tremendous insights in how to build a successful construction company. And so enjoy my conversation with Oliver, share it with other people. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius. Let's dive right in now. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Oliver, welcome to Construction Genius.
Man, I'm excited to be here with you guys today. I love talking about construction. I grew up in construction. Ever since I could remember, my dad had owned a construction company and my mom worked inside the construction company as well. So they both were like entrepreneurs. And I've always been around construction. So when I wanted to start my own construction business, it wasn't like something that was like foreign. It was something that I was a little scared of because when my parents had their construction business, they had made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, went out of business, made a lot of money again in construction, and then it was like lost a lot of money. So there was always this roller coaster ride. One of the things that I wanted to do when I started my construction business was I didn't want to go through that roller coaster ride for a couple of reasons. Number one, it broke up our family. Like when the first roller coaster ride, they made a lot of money and lost a lot of money. Like I moved with my mom and my three sisters to Maine. My dad stayed back and to try to pick up the pieces and try to regrow his business. That hurt because then all of a sudden the family was broken. And now all of a sudden I was living in Maine, which was like rural country coming from Boston. And my mom was a city girl. So she didn't really understand living in Maine full time. Like going to Maine on vacation was one thing, but living in Maine full time was something that was totally out of this world. And now we were living there full time and it was just a struggle. I mean, there would be power outages. She was a teacher, so she wasn't making that much money. And it was just seemed like life was so hard, you know, and life, it was always like the struggle. It was weird too, because I knew what was possible in this world because I did see my parents as when they were successful. So like having to go back to like really just living paycheck to paycheck and trying to figure all those things out with my mom was very difficult. So like one of my goals, like coming out of high school and graduating from college was like, I wanted to take care of my mom and three sisters. And that was one of the major reasons for me starting a construction business. And when you start the construction business and your eyes are wide open, like, yeah, I'm going to be successful in construction. And then you really get hit with the real world that like, there's a lot of challenges there. There's a lot of ups and downs. My first entrance into construction out of graduating college was I was working for Skanska. It's a big general contractor. I was working for them for like 3 months and I ended up getting laid off. They gave up on me, but I didn't give up on me. So I just kept sharpening my skills and started the business. And we were doing really small jobs in the beginning, like $2,000 jobs, $30,000 jobs. And it was the starting of the business. And now we're doing $1 to $5 million projects. We completed $20 million worth of business last year. And we're on track to do $40 million worth of business this year.
Okay, so let's just go back to the beginning because there's a lot going on there. Give me your earliest recollection as a child of your parents in the construction business. What are the first impressions that you had of that?
In the civil game. So that was always like the excavators, the dump trucks, the bulldozers. And so like from a kid's perspective, I was like, oh my God, like my parents are like awesome, you know, like these are real life like bulldozers and real life excavators. And I could go sit in them and he'd bring me in them. And like, it just seemed like I was living in a fantasy world. It was awesome. I was like super excited about all that. But at the same time, there's that component of operations of construction. There's the component of financial management of construction. And, when you're a kid, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, you don't really understand all that stuff. And that's where he struggled it. And that's where there was some failures and there's some things that needed improvement, and it cost him the business in the beginning.
Did it go out of business?
Yeah, it went out of business. And I was 5 years old because I was just going into first grade. I went into first grade and when I moved to Maine. So first grade, 5 years old.
Okay, so first grade. So there's like some memories, but it's, again, you're not like a 13, 14, 15-year-old.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this then. What is it about the experience that your parents had with their business that is now motivating you as you've started your business? What are you determined to replicate? What are you determined not to do?
It almost gave me like this weird, like perfectionism, like persona, which is not always a good thing, right? Because like, if you want perfection, like you're never going to get it. So like, you're never going to start. And the perfectionism came from like not wanting to ever have to put my family through the pain that we all went through. When we started off the business, the first job we really did, a subcontractor that I was running, it was a $30,000 job, and the job ended up costing me $60,000.
What kind of a sub were you at that point?
I was a civil sub, right? So we were installing like underground pipe. And then in this case, it was a box culvert we were installing. It was in Massachusetts. We were doing it on a golf course. So it's funny that you're talking about a golf course. We were doing it on a golf course. And there was 2 locations. We were just installing an underground box culvert. And that job took my heart. I was like, oh my God, like I lost $30,000 on a $30,000 job because it cost me $60,000. And it's like, at that point, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to do what my dad did to my family. I was like, I want to make money. Like, up to that point, I had never lost money in something. But at the same time, like, I watched how that GC communicated with me, because my price really was $60,000 when I first bid that job. The way he communicated with me, the way he like ran the job, and the way he executed, and the way he communicated with the owner, because he was the GC. I took all of those learnings, and I'm so glad I didn't give up in that moment, because I took those learnings to now go and complete over $100 million worth of projects in the last 10 years. And I ran them the exact same way.
Yeah, let's go back then. So you bid a project for $30,000, but you should have bid it for 60?
Right. So the job was $30,000. It cost me $60,000, but my first price that I initially submitted was $60,000.
Oh, did the GC talk you out of $60,000 or something? Did the GC get you to cut your price?
He simplified the job, and I wasn't confident in my numbers at the time. So I was like, oh yeah, I can do that, which I should have never ever done, and those are all the learning experiences that we grow on.
Okay, so that first job then where you lose $30,000, and then you're observing the way the GC's interacting with the owner, the way that GC's interacting with you as a sub. What did you take away specifically from that you then applied to the next project and the next project that helped you to become more successful?
So it was the way they set up the job. They were really organized. The way they communicated with the owner, like until you've actually seen someone communicate with the owner, like you don't really know what to say, what not to say, things that are going to fly, things that are not going to fly. So getting that experience, yes, it cost me a lot, but at the same time, it was eye-opening. Because my dad the stuff that I always saw him do, he was the subcontractor. So he was always talking with another contractor. He was never talking to the owner and communicating with the purse strings that were paying for everything.
You started off as a sub and you're a GC now, correct?
Correct.
What did you learn about communicating with an owner as a sub? What are some of the key things that our listeners who are subs can lay hold of in terms of communicating with owners?
One thing that I really liked about working directly with the owner is you touch the money first. That was one of the things that drove me crazy, is like we did great work. Everything was executed properly. And then when it came time to getting paid, it was like all these excuses and reasons why we weren't going to get paid the full amount, or additional paperwork that was never discussed now needed to be submitted. So one of the things is you touch the money first. Number 2 is the owner cares about the finished product. They don't want to hear all of the bad things that are happening on the project. So it's like they want the sausage. They don't want to understand how the sausage is made. They don't want to see all the blood. They don't want to see all the guts. They just want the sausage. Even with my team now, I explain that to them. Like, they don't want to hear about the subcontractor not showing up, the paint supply house not having the paint, the mechanical unit being delivered late or not being delivered correctly. Like, what is the solution and how are we going to get this thing to the finish line? Because at the end of the day, that's all they care about. They just want the sausage. They don't want to know how it's made and all of this stuff. That's what they're paying us to do. Yeah. So that was the second most important thing. If I was a sub, thinking what the owner, how you want to communicate with the owner.
So how do you maintain your relationship with the GC if you're going to be aggressive in developing a relationship with the owner? Because isn't the GC going to say, stop talking to the owner, you need to talk to me?
You know, if you're a subcontractor, you need to respect that, right? We have a part of the business that does do subcontract. So we have to respect the relationship between the owner and the GC. And you got to flow all that information up through them. So I wouldn't cross those boundaries. But at the same time, it is important to understand how to communicate with the owner, because if you're not getting paid as the subcontractor, you need to be able to communicate that to someone, especially after you've already tried to work it out with the GC and you can't get anywhere with them.
Okay. So how long were you exclusively a civil sub?
So I was a civil sub from 2008 to 2013, so 5 years.
Okay. So you started right in the middle of the downturn.
Yes. Yep.
That's a perfect time to start. That's awesome.
Yeah.
See, that's funny though, because you could say, man, I've been through a downturn. So it's not like, someone who started their business in, let's say, 2013 and everything's been awesome for the last 10 years.
It was definitely a grind, like getting projects. And now I just have a better algorithm for how all that stuff works, the things you need to do. I had all the trash that I had to still work through. I was scared to make cold calls. I was scared to go to the vendor outreach meetings. I was scared to do all of those things. But I had to work through and build up the confidence in myself to be able to make a cold call.
Let's talk about that. How did you build your confidence to make cold calls?
So we had that job that we lost 30 grand on, and it was the pressure of like almost being at the end of the runway. Like the credit card just starting to get maxed out, it's like, and I didn't want to be a failure. Remember I was talking about that earlier. I didn't want to be another statistic. I didn't want to do what my dad did. And I wanted to be successful. So how do I be successful? Well, I got to start getting in front of the people that are going to give me these type of projects or want to work with me on these projects. So it's like, I got to start making the phone calls. And then you start making the phone calls and you're like, oh, what do I say? I created my script and then I would be like, oh, I don't want to say that. And I took that out of the script. And then I was like, oh, that really worked this time. So I kept that in the script.
Tell me about that script, if you can remember. I know it's a while ago.
Yeah, I would be like, hey, this is Oliver with McKinsey Construction. We're a general construction company that specializes in HVAC and civil construction. Do you ever offer the ability for companies like myself to come in and do a capabilities briefing? And it was just, I said that so many times that it's like still ingrained in me to this day. I've been saying that since 2013. And it was just like, how can I get in front of these people? Because like once I got in front of them, at the time, I also had a partner, right? And this partner, he had been a GC for 30 years. So I was this young kid, and I remember meeting him in the airport when we first started like making our joint venture. He's like, hey, kid, I'm a GC. I've been doing this for 30 years. I have all my contacts. Like, I'm not going to give you any of them, but if you find some new projects or new contacts, I'll help you execute on them. And that was like all I needed to hear, because like I would then make those phone calls. And I would get in front of these people and then I would bring him with me and I'd be like, I would just shut up and just let him do like most of the talking. And we got our first job. And then I was like, okay, now I understand my role in all of this. And I played that role really well. But at the same time, I paid attention to the things he was saying. I paid attention to how he was running the jobs because I wanted to also have those capabilities.
That's interesting, because I was going to ask you about how, as a young guy, you got a toehold when you didn't have any experience yourself. So what you did at the beginning then is you partnered up with a guy who had a little more experience and kind of that helped you to get some work secured?
Oh, 100%. That's how you compress decades into years, right? Is you partner with people, and he had something that I didn't have, and there was experience, but I also had something that he hadn't ever seen before, and that was the tenacity to make the phone calls, the tenacity to get out into the marketplace, the tenacity to get in front of people and get the opportunities so that we could just apply his expertise to it. And now all of a sudden it was a great partnership.
Yeah, it's a trip, man, because I know we're in totally different industries. I'm a consultant, you're a contractor. But when I started my business, I'd gotten fired from this company on the Friday. I started my business on a Monday. At the time, I had a wife and 4 kids at home. And so you know what I did, man? I got out there and I started cold calling. I did exactly what you did because I was afraid of failure and I didn't want my credit card bills getting racked up either.
100%. That motivated me. That really inspired me. I mean, I wanted to take care of my mom and three sisters, and now all of a sudden I'm creating more debts than being positive. So it was definitely something that motivated me.
How long were you working in that partnership or that joint venture? Was that like a formal business partnership, or was it just you guys were JVing stuff together? How did that work?
We had no signed documents or anything, but like it was just something that like we shook hands and was like, hey, we're going to be 50-50 partners in doing this. And we went after the contracts and we executed on them together. We had a great partnership. He showed me how to project manage. He showed me how to speak to the owners, how to communicate, and really, even talk to subcontractors and hold them accountable and hold the business accountable to all the owner. And so there was a lot of good things there. At the same time, there were some broken beliefs there, right? And some of those broken beliefs were because there was so much risk in construction, the thought process was always to like control all the decisions. And if you're controlling all the decisions, you're going to limit the size that you are. What I learned over time was that like once we hit $10 million and $12 million and then fell back down to $6 million, that I wasn't going to be able to do everything on my own. And if we really wanted to be the $100 million company that I wanted this company to be, I was going to have to allow other team members to make decisions, but also make sure that they were making decisions off of decision matrix. That's the single thing that's like really helped grow the company and expand the company and get the company moving in the direction that I wanted. I've always dreamed of it moving. It was allowing other team members to make decisions, allow other team members to execute on behalf of the company, but also stay in alignment with the company, right? And that's all done through leadership and knowing how to keep them aligned in the business and helps grow and scale the business together.
Okay, so let's explore that because it sounded like right from the beginning, you got one thing down that people struggle with, and that's the sales part, the front end sales. You partnered up with someone with some experience so that you could learn the project management side. As you grow the business, you came across an issue that every contractor comes across, and that's finding the right people to put in the right position so that you can achieve your goals. Tell us some of the successes and the failures that you experienced in hiring and on recruiting and hiring people as you've grown over the years.
So we do government projects, right? So you got to have like certain qualifications to be the superintendent and the site safety office, health officer, and the quality control manager. So I remember the first job that we hit that was like of substantial size, a couple $1 million was like $2.6 million down in Albany, Georgia. And this job was to replace overhead.
And was this a GC?
This was as a GC, yeah. And this was a job to replace coiling like overhead doors. And there was like 289 of them that we had to replace.
Can I just stop you real quick, Oliver?
Yeah.
How did you go from underground to replacing doors?
When we transitioned to being the prime contractor, to be working directly for the owner, you can't just say, hey, I'm an underground contractor. Well, I guess you can say that, but you're limiting yourself to like this many projects, right? Whereas now when you're a GC, you do everything, right? And you hire the civil guy, you hire the HVAC guy, you hire the overhead door installing contractor. So that was also a huge shift in my thought process. I was like, yeah, I'm a civil guy, but like, you just narrow yourself down, especially when you're working with the owner, because the owner doesn't care about just the civil. They care about their project being complete and they want A to Z being done. They don't care how it gets done. They just want it done and they're willing to pay you to execute on and getting it done.
Let me just ask. So when you shifted from being a sub to being a GC, you picked government projects as a niche?
Correct.
And are you talking about specific government agencies or specific project types? How did you go through that process?
So there were specific project types, meaning like projects that were like, I wanted to do basically $1 to $5 million jobs. Occasionally when you're marketing for $1 to $5 million jobs, you catch a trout that's like 400 grand. We still did those. We weren't going to turn those away, but our goal was to do $1 to $5 million jobs.
Okay, excellent. All right. So you land this one project where you got the overhead doors and you need to bring people on board to handle that, I'm assuming. Tell us about that process.
Yeah, I had never really even hired people up until this point.
And what year are we at, Oliver?
This was 2013.
Okay, cool. Okay, keep going.
Just starting off to be a GC. I literally spent a year calling the owners and people that could issue contracts from the government. And I finally get my second contract, and it's like the biggest contract that we've ever gotten to date. And we're on the job. The job is supposed to start, and we don't have the superintendent and the quality control manager and the site safety and health officer. And I'm like stressing out. I'm like, what's going on? Like, honestly, I thought my partner was going to be able to help more on that side. What I did is I literally went to the internet and I started like looking up all these crazy sites. And there was this one site where you could like literally type in the search, and I think a lot of them do it now, where you can literally type in like quality control manager or EM385, which is these keywords that the government uses for their people. And I found like a list of people and I just started calling them. And like, I remember getting a guy he was already working for another company in North Carolina. And I don't know how I got him to come and join me and my company and this project, but he ended up coming over. And then I got another guy that was in Kings Bay, Georgia. And I got him. He had just transitioned off of another contract and was looking for some work. So I got him over here. But like, it was that pressure. There was that time frame that like I needed someone. And it was like my sole focus was finding that superintendent quality control manager. I made so many mistakes in that process. And what I mean by mistakes is I was just like, I just need you guys here. And they showed up. I had an offer letter signed. I had all those things signed, but I didn't really bring them on the way we bring people on now. We bring people on now like, are they a cultural fit? Will they be an operational fit? And then it's like, how are they going to impact the business financially? And we're looking at all those three things. Where before it was just like, I got to get them in here and like, let's roll. And luckily that project was successful and those people executed on everything they said they were going to execute on. And honestly, one of those people really helped groom me in building like safety plans and QC plans and all these plans that are required for government projects, which then helped us get tens of millions of other projects.
I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Oliver. And I'd like to give you a quick reminder that there is a resource that you can tap that can have a tremendous impact on your construction company. And that resource is my book, Construction Genius. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice. And it's exclusively for construction companies. I wrote this book condensing the wisdom that we've shared on this podcast over the years, along with the frameworks that I use with my clients every single day to help them to achieve high performance in their companies with regards to leadership and sales and marketing and strategy. And you know what? It's only $20 on Amazon. And this is what you should do. Get 10 or more copies for you and the leaders in your company. And then when you get 10 copies, shoot me an email at eric@constructiongenius.com. And I will reply to that email and we will set up a 60-minute Zoom session with you and your leadership team where I'll do a Q&A about the content of the book and an exclusive leadership training class for your team. That's valued at $2,500. For you, I'll do it absolutely free. All you have to do is purchase 10 or more copies of the book. The link is in the show notes to the Amazon page. They're $20 a copy, and the book is totally awesome. So go out and buy it. Use it in your company. Let me know if you purchase 10 or more. We'll connect and make sure that your leadership team gets upgraded just a little bit. All right, back to our conversation with Oliver. So it's interesting you said that because at the beginning you were just hiring because you had to, and now you've evolved to the point where 10 years later you're thinking cultural, operational, and then financial. How did you come to those three specific pillars?
I'm a huge guy in like finding mentors, right? So when I was first got in the GC game, I had that mentor that had run a $10 million business. My lifetime goal was to get a business that did $10 million a year. So I found that mentor, and then all of a sudden, what would you know? After 3 years, I was 26 years old and had a $10 million business.
How did you find that mentor?
My dad's one of those guys that like, he's at the gas station pumping gas and he talks to everybody and he meets everybody and he always has a guy that has a guy. So I guess he met this guy at the gym and then he made an introduction to me because he knew I was interested in that stuff. And so I met him there, and then that was the mentor that helped me get into government contract and then also helped me grow my business to $10 million. But one of the things that I didn't do is after I got to that $10 million, there also can be a situation where a mentor, if that mentor's goals aren't continuing to grow and increase, like you can almost cap yourself, right? So I was capping myself at that $10 million mark. So then I found another mentor that had sold his business for $100.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, so you're a young guy. Now, this is important. How long did it take you to figure out that, hold on a second, this guy's a $10 million dude. I've made it now and I want to get more than 10 million. How long did it take you to figure out that this guy's Not because he's a bad guy, but he's just capping me by his mindset.
A long time. I mean, the stuff that I'm giving right now, like this was like 10 years of like pumping my head, painfulness. I mean, like, so much pain there. 10 years of agony figuring that out. And then I found another mentor, and this mentor had just sold his business for $151 million and was talking about team and like personal and professional and financial goals of your team members. And it was like totally foreign to me because, like I told you, my previous mentor was always just ingrained in my head how much risk we were actually taking, how we didn't want everybody making decisions for the business because now all of a sudden we were going to be paying for that risk. But at the same time, that thought process was capping us where we're at. So this new mentor taught me about building teams and how you have to build teams with alignment. And that was the reason why my other mentor was nervous about letting other team members make decisions, because there was no alignment. So when you can create alignment in the decision-making and understand that there's doers in the organization, then there's thinking in the organization, then there's draining in the organization, and then there's watching in the organization. The thing that you really want is you want doer thinkers, people that are going to be doing off of good thinking. And when you find those, you double down with those people and you give those people more opportunity in the business.
That's excellent. So how long, your initial partner that you were JVing with, you had that handshake deal with, how long did you work with him?
We worked together from 2013 to literally last year.
So you had quite a long relationship with him then?
10 years, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So you're growing the business. You started in 2008. You're growing the business. You're getting to the point where you're hiring people. You've got those three pillars of cultural, operational, financial. Let me ask you this. You've mentioned here that you're 20 million last year. You're on the road to 40 million. I mean, that's a big jump, 20 to 40 million, and your goal is 100 million. How are you managing that growth in terms of being able to execute the projects profitably and not go totally insane at the same time?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And honestly, that was one of the things that held me back for so long is I didn't understand the people game of this thing. I didn't understand the leadership game of this thing. I didn't understand all of that integrates with each other. And it had me on a roller coaster ride. 1 year we do 12 million. The next year we break down to 8. And then the next year we'd go to 6. And then the next year we'd pop up to 10 again. Because I got really excited and wanted to execute on stuff. But it wasn't like this, we're starting off at 16 and then we go to 20, then we go to 40. And the reason why we're going from those jumps is because we have really good people around us and we're leaning into those people and we're allowing those people to make decisions on our behalf after we've built out the framework for the decision making to be done in. And we're taking off responsibility. So before we used to have project management, operations was intertwined. But what if you just totally separate the two? Now all of a sudden you have a person that's just totally focusing their 8-hour day, 40 hours a week plus on estimating. And then you have the same thing happening for project management. Do you think you're going to get more done or less done? You're going to get way more done. And it's going to be way cleaner because you don't have to put on your estimating hat and then take your estimating hat off and then put on your project management and then take your project management hat off and then put on your financial hat. That's a nightmare. Now we have all departments and leaders in those departments growing all of those departments.
Excellent. Let me ask you, because you've referred to it a couple of times here, this framework for decision making. So it sounds like you're looking to empower your people, but at the same time, you're giving them clear boundaries within which to make those empowered decisions. How did you develop that framework for decision making, and how would you describe it?
So I'm still working on actually how to duplicate it. But the only way that I know how to do it is literally I like to do daily meetings with the new team members as they come on, especially if they're a high level team member that's coming in. And the way I look at it is we just drafted our number one recruit. I'm not going to just let them come into the business and say, hey, yeah, go execute on this. No, I'm meeting with them on a day-to-day basis for the first 2 weeks.
I'm right with you here. In that daily meeting, how is that structured? How long does it last? What are you talking about?
It's between 30 minutes and an hour. And when I say 30 minutes an hour, if we have 100 projects to go over, it's probably closer to an hour. When we got 1 or 2 projects to go over, it's closer to 30 minutes. And it's we're walking through all of the day-to-day things that are coming up on that project and how we need to respond to it. And then it's now all of a sudden it gives this person this framework of how do we respond to it? And then now they're working on 10 different projects. So the same problems come up, but they just come up in different areas. So it's like now they're like, oh, I answered that over here, and I'm going to take that from over here and then answer it on project 106. And I'm going to take that same answer from 106 and then answer it on 108. So then they get a way of like operating off of that understanding. So I'm basically downloading everything that I have in my mind and my thought process to them. And that's in that daily meeting. And then we also have, what I'll do is like, if I'm doing like transactional things, like if it's like how to submit an invoice, how to put together a submittal, we'll just record ourselves. Like, so similar, like we'd record that, right? And then they would have literally a step-by-step instruction on how to do that. Now it's like, even when we onboard new team members, it's like, we'll literally say, hey, go back and watch this video. And if you have any questions, reach out to me and then we can have a meeting off of it.
That's brilliant. So tell us, what sort of software are you using to record that? How do you do that? Just so people know.
I'll just use Movavi Screen Recorder because it allows you to record your screen. But there's all kinds of things. You can do them on Zoom. You can do it like, I think there's the program called Loom. Just getting ahead of the thought process and knowing like, hey, this is an asset. This is something that they're going to come behind me and execute on. And having the mental awareness of that and then recording it. And then now all of a sudden having that asset. So the next person you bring on, you can just say, hey, watch this video. And now all of a sudden you just bought back 30 minutes of your time because you didn't have to show that exact same process over and over again.
Okay, so I want to go back to this 2-week framework, this time frame when you bring someone on board. Why is it 2 weeks? And then what is your meeting cadence like with a new hire, particularly a high-profile hire, in terms of after that first 2 weeks?
I just set it up as 2 weeks. I mean, it could be 4 weeks. There's no definite cutoff. I mean, if the person is really important to the business and we really want them to be successful in the business, I'm willing to invest the time into it. And that's one of the leadership things that I learned. The same way we'll buy a property and invest money into the property and invest time into the property to make it look beautiful. Well, you got to do the same thing with your people. If you want them to really be able to come into your business and operationally have an impact. I don't want people just coming into the business freestyling and doing things based off of what they think they should be done. Like, no, you got to train them. But the cool thing is once you train someone the right way, now all of a sudden when you bring in the next person, they can train them.
Yep, that's excellent. Okay, so you got that meeting framework, which I really like. You're not just hiring and then hoping and just letting people run with stuff. You're looking to download what you're thinking into their mind so that they understand what to do on various types of projects. You're growing to 40 million and you're wanting to get to 100 million. What's going to have to change in your business if you're going to get from 40 to 100?
We're doing projects that are $4 or $5 million, but we also have a job that's like 30 grand. And the reason why we have a job that's 30 grand is because we signed up for this job order construction contract, which is $1 million contract, but it's done in little task orders. So having meetings with the team is like, we're going to basically start killing off these smaller contracts because we're putting the A team on a $35,000 job, but we need to continue to keep the A team on $1 million jobs, $3 million jobs, $5 million jobs, or $10 million jobs. Because that's where you complete a $35,000 job at the end of the job. Like, even if you made all $35,000 in profit, it's still 35 grand. But like, if you complete a $10 million job and you execute properly on that job, you can make some really good money. That's the money and the resource that's needed to continue to develop the team and add to the team and build the team.
So that's a question that I'd like to ask you about then, because we all know in construction, top line is one thing, but there's often a large gap between the top line revenue number and the profit at the bottom, right? As you're growing to 100 million, what strategies do you have in place and what's your mindset around maintaining acceptable profit levels as the business continues to grow?
No, that's a really good point. And that's another thing that I learned from my mentors is like, he always says, like, if you have a business that has revenue per head of like $100,000, you're struggling to survive. But if you have a business that is making $250,000 of revenue per head, then you're actually a profitable business, right? And then if you're $500,000, you're even more profitable. If you're $1 million per head, then you're even more profitable, right? So I'm always looking at that revenue per head. We may have a need to hire more people, but we're not hiring people just to hire people. We're staying in alignment with that revenue per head so we don't overhire people. We might need some team members to push a little harder and become more efficient. We have that strict parameter in there so that we don't get out of alignment with the growth.
Let me just circle back then. You're building this business. You have a motivating factor of taking care of your mom and your sisters, that family-based thing. What is your relationship with your dad like now?
So it was horrible for a while, so I only told you like the beginning half of the story, the 30 grand, but once it was all said and done, those first 5 years, the reason why we separated is because we were like $500,000 in the hole. And I was tired of like not living and dying by my decisions. I was tired of like someone else's decisions, like muddying the waters or maybe wasn't as profitable as I would have wanted it to be or whatever. So we made that split.
The split with who?
My dad. And like he continued to do his subcontract stuff, and then I continued to do the general contract.
When you first started your business, you were working with your dad?
Yeah, so we started it together because he had, obviously horrible credit. We had a similar name. I thought it would be a good idea to partner with him. And honestly, like you kind of work with the opportunities that are in front of me. Like I worked a job and like I didn't make enough in that job to provide for myself, pay back my student loans, and take care of my mom and 3 sisters. So I always knew I wanted to be in entrepreneurship. I knew my dad knew something about this thing. I knew that he was a dangerous person because he had been successful, but he also lost money. But I thought like I would be able to like control that relationship and not get into a bad spot. And we ended up getting into a bad spot.
I just want to be clear here, Oliver. So you partnered with your dad in addition to the other guy that you had a partnership with?
So 2008, we started the business, partnered with my dad. 2013, I separated from the partnership with my dad. He went on to continue to be a subcontractor. I wanted to only work as the GC because I was tired of getting beat up as the subcontractor. We were doing great work, but it just was really difficult for us to get paid on time, all those things. We started to figure it out at the end, but like, and when I say figure it out at the end is like, I was so tired of getting beat up that like, we had Skanska come to us and they wanted us to install 84-inch pipe under I-275 in Tampa, Florida. And I told them that like we would do the job for 500 grand, and they were like, "Oh no, like you guys got to do it for like 300 grand." I'm like, "No, we're not going to do the job." And then I didn't answer their phone calls or anything, and they called me back, kept calling me back. I was like, "Dude, if you want us to do the job, we'll do it for 500 grand. I want to get paid in 14 days, and that's it. If you don't want to do that, then don't call me. Just leave me alone." And they agreed to the deal. So we were just starting to like get some momentum, and we made really good money on that job.
I just want to say this. Let me just make a point here. When the Skanskas of the world call you and they want you to work cheap, you don't have to do it. Oliver here is an example of that. You don't have to do it. If people aren't willing to pay you what you're worth, get your butt out there and do some business development and find the people who will. Sorry, little side rant. Go ahead, Oliver.
That's really important though. So we were starting to build like momentum, but there was just so much baggage that was with my dad that I was like, I just got to focus 100% of my attention on doing work directly for the owner and executing as the prime contractor instead of the subcontractor. Because at the end of the day, like it's hard to be in charge of your own destiny when you're constantly relying on another contractor to give you projects, And like I wanted to be able to make the relationships with the owners, and especially owners that had the money and the government had the money. I focused all my attention on that. And then the next 10 years, I partnered with my partner and we built that. Appreciate you asking that clarifying question.
Yeah, no. It's good because I think this is interesting because many people struggle, obviously, in their dynamic with their parents personally, but then you've got the business dynamic going on as well. So 2013, you separate from your dad business-wise, and we're in 23 now, so that's 10 years later. Do you still have a relationship with him?
We do have a relationship now. He'll call me, you know what I mean? Like I'll call him occasionally. It's not the best relationship. Honestly, like I'm grown now, like I got a lot of stuff going on. So like
you're a grown ass man, as they say.
Yeah. So like the opportunity to go play catch is not like there anymore, Like sometimes I feel like that's what he wants to do. Like, hey, let's go play catch. And it's like, dude, like I got so much stuff going on. I would have loved to have played catch with you like when I was 5 years old or 10 years old. Because I was even thinking about it this morning. It's like I didn't have like someone to show me how to like shave my face or like do the manly things. But at the same time, it was good because I became really observant and watched how other people were doing things. I could make a decision on what I wanted to do, and I didn't have someone constantly down my throat telling me what I needed to do. It's an interesting way to look at that.
No, it is. It is. And it's interesting. So now let me ask you, do you have a family? Do you have kids?
I have 2 kids. I got a son and a daughter. My daughter's 3, my son's 1.
Okay, so they're young. They're little guys. Okay, cool. So then what are you doing differently with your kids that your mom and dad didn't do? Because this is really important, right? Because you're under tremendous pressure running a construction business, and it's difficult to balance all of the things that you need to balance. What are you doing differently in terms of being a father, being a husband, that you're hoping will have a different outcome in terms of your life?
I'm still knee deep in it, so I can only really talk about.
No, it's cool, dude. We're not going to hold anybody to it. You know what I'm saying? No, believe me.
Yeah. Like I was saying before, I'm really observant. So I have a friend that had kids probably 10 years before I had kids. And I heard him one day, he was talking with his daughter, and she did something that was she shouldn't have been doing. And he was like, "Hey, honey, you don't want to do that." But that word pattern of "hey, honey" was something I would have never said. But I was like, "Hey, I really like that." And I was like, "Hey, when I have a kid, I'm going to say that same exact thing." So now when I speak to my daughter, I'm always as mad as I'll be like, "Hey, honey, you got to do it like this instead of like that." And it just softens the Oliverness, you know what I mean? Sometimes I can be but it's "Hey, honey, what are you doing?" You know?
It's funny because I'm asking you about parenting and you got young kids, and my oldest is 17 now, right? And so I'm always super hesitant to give parenting advice, because I'm dude, I don't know if I'm qualified to give parenting advice, and I have 5 kids, you know what I mean? And so it's when I asked you that question, it's just interesting for us to think about what are the 1 or 2 things or the little things that we're doing differently that may have a massive impact on our kids. And we're not claiming to be perfect parents or anything, but we're always looking to do something maybe a little bit different than our parents did. Maybe we're looking to do exactly what our parents did because they did a great job. But it's always interesting just to think through those things.
Another interesting concept that I really am looking forward to working through with my kids as they get older is just the concept of investing, right? So as my kids get older, even when I was a kid, I always wanted to have an allowance. I wanted to have money, but what did you do with your money? You just spent it, or you would save it? But no, what if your parents taught you to invest it, and then the only money that you could spend was the return on the investment? You know what I mean? So I'm thinking teach that concept to my kids so that they have this investment mindset. I invest in real estate. So construction is the thing that generates me money, but I also do a lot of investing in real estate. And then that real estate then generates income for me. And it's this income that comes in from me not having to go out there and push and shove. Whereas construction, you have to go out there and you have to push and you have to shove and you have to work for every dollar you get. Whereas that real estate side and that investing side, it generates money without me having to show up, especially if it's partnership properly, right? And the deals that I invest in are 100 plus unit deals where I don't have to be on site. There's on-site property management. There's partners that can handle a lot of the deal, and then I can focus on what I'm really good at, and that's the construction on the deals. But once the construction is done, my partners are handling the other stuff. So it's structuring their framework and their understanding of how to invest. And then when you do invest, live off the eggs and then keep your goose making you eggs, type of thought process.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's a tremendous thing for you to be communicating to your kids. That's awesome. So Oliver, just tell us if people want to get in touch with you and how they can do that and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, you can connect with me on Instagram or Facebook at Oliver Fernandez _3. And then, or you could also reach out to me at oliverfernandez.com.
Excellent. We'll put the links in the show notes. And Oliver, I really enjoyed having you on the show today. I appreciate it. Thanks for joining us on Construction Genius.
Awesome. It was really a pleasure to be with you and work with you and just get a better understanding of the concepts that you're talking about as well.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. That was an awesome conversation. Thank you for listening. It was a pleasure chatting with Oliver. Feel free to go to the show notes. There's links in the show notes to how you can get in touch with him. And feel free to give the show a rating or a review wherever you get your podcasts. I appreciate you listening to Construction Genius today. And we'll catch you on the next episode.